I'm Kelley Harrell, author, animist, and creator of the Weekly Rune. Soul Intent Arts is my soul-tending practice, and you're listening to What in the Weird, my podcast in which I talk about runes, animism, soul-tending, and how all of those intersect through nature on my path. Before we start, I just want to thank the runes. They keep me in my lane as long as I listen to them anyway, my allies, the ancestors, and to everyone who listens to and supports the podcast. I appreciate your kind notes and comments about it and hearing about your experiences with the runes. I really love it, and I'm happy to share this space with you. I want to thank my Patreon supporters. They're the folks who make the sharing of my rune work through the podcast and the Runecast possible with their financial support. If you've benefited from the Runecast, the podcast, or the loads of free articles on the runes, animism, energetic hygiene, and soul tending on my website, you can show your support through buying books at soulintentarts.com or elsewhere online, by making a one-time contribution through PayPal or Square, by contributing regularly through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for Kelley Harrell. You can also subscribe to the paid version of the Weekly Rune there, and thank you. That said, the Weekly Rune is out, and if you're not sure what it is, it's a runecast with the spirits of place that I've done for years, focused on Nigel Pennick's calculation of a runic calendar and the current half-month rune, situated into place with elements, directions, season, and bone allies. If you're not sure what a half-month is or what a runic calendar is, listen to the early episodes of What in the Weird, or just go read the Weekly Rune. It's explained fully at the beginning of every runecast. When we approach the Galder of Uruz, we have Uru. Uru literally means aurochs, a wild, gigantic, untamable, now extinct ancestor of cattle. It's telling that the first rune in the traditional ordering of the Elder Futhark is Fehu, which actually indicates everyday cattle, and the second rune in that ordering is their primal progenitor. To me, what that says is, in the traditional ordering of the Futhark, we enter into soul and form with an emphasis on basic needs being met, while the second rune, Uruz, emphasizes that we be fully here. Taking care of our basic needs so that we can tend our deeper beingness. As someone who came through their esoteric education in the late 80s and early 90s, there was a huge emphasis on you create your own reality, the Abraham Hicks stuff. It was put forward as if you just accept that you're a co-creator, you're the only one ultimately responsible for everything in your life, and that you like and you don't like, with an underlying message of you are whole. On the surface, it conveyed as an empowering message in a time in American settler culture when trickle-down economics wasn't trickling down. People were starting to turn away from the church. The hippies of the 60s were wearing Jordache. It was a potent message at a time that the quasi-privileged middle class, in particular, started to realize they weren't being held by the system. So anything self-help, self-care sounded like a legit return to power that the church had taken over a long time ago. We weren't supposed to see ourselves as powerful, and we ate that shit up. It gave birth to the Instagram gurus of now. You create your own reality. I felt it immediately, like for real. I felt the truth of it. But as someone who was sexually assaulted in childhood and managing chronic illness and being in public while female and capable of seeing that with all of my shit going on, there were other people having a hard time in their lives due to things they couldn't control, sometimes a much harder time than me. Because of all of that, I also felt the shame of it. And I've talked about that in other blog posts on my website. You create your own reality was just another way to victim blame. It was another spin on original sin. And that's why I ultimately dropped it like a hot potato. Not because it was wrong, but because it was harmfully, disruptively incomplete. I have to pause about this point in my spiel and say I always have someone who tells me, like right about now, well, it's because you just don't understand the law of attraction. Maybe. Yes, we do create part of our reality, as does our personal present and past, our physical and mental states, our communities at present, our parents' stuff, whether they subsequently resolved it or are still wrestling with it, the stuff of our past communities, our ancestors, our culture, to say nothing of, laws of nature, stupid luck, privilege, mobility, timing, the literacy to understand that any of this is a factor in your life, and the skills to say, reconcile what of it that you can. I mean, this is the stuff of weird, the personal and collective layers of truths and dynamics we couldn't change if we wanted to. We cannot make certain aspects of our lives be untrue. You create your own reality doesn't leave room for those facts and denies the impact of them on our experience. It denies interdependence, thus animism. We are in community by nature, literally. What we can do is our best to expand the range of options in how we respond to life. And again, the definition of do our best has everything to do with privilege. Not everyone has the resources to take that vagus nerve class or go to therapy or get a gym membership. So even when we talk about empowerment, we still end up at the haves and have-nots, maybe the have-a-little-bits. What does that sound like? Where I'm going with this is we can't have a conversation about how we respond to our lot in life without also talking about what options are available to us and how we do so. When we break it down to that capability to identify and expand the range of options in how we respond, we're talking about our assets. We're talking about our wealth, our fehu. We need to have some fehu in place to Uruz effectively, which is to fully be. It is to embody ourselves. Therein lies another of the settler cultural rubs. One of the most pervasive dynamics I've encountered in working with clients over the years is wanting the Uruz before the fehu. And for those of you who are hardcore about the futhark, you probably also know about the uthark. Whole different conversation, but it's worth mentioning. I encounter a lot of people who want enlightenment, whatever the hell that is. The brightest guides, the mysteries of the cosmos revealed, their life purpose delivered on a platter, but they're ignoring their trauma, their soul loss, their anxiety, their awkward holiday dinner table family dynamic. It isn't that you can't put the Uruz before the fehu. It's just a fork ton easier to support the Uruz when the fehu is already there. Practical needs come before spiritual ones in the traditional ordering of the futhark. And in settler culture, this formula is still pretty solid. I've watched countless people have the mysteries revealed without having done the trauma work, and it always leads to more crisis, either theirs or that which emerges from the unbalanced teachings they pass on to their students. I've watched people ascend without ever having truly been here, and it eventually implodes every time. I've lived my own version of it. I've, without question, bitten off more than I was prepared to chew in soul work without having done the human relationship inform part of it. I was trying to create a reality of transcendence that didn't honor the broken systems that created my trauma, which left my creation no sound basis to rest on. Chop wood, carry water. We need to be fed. We need to figure out how to stay warm at night. We need to know where the water is. We need to find our place in community. These are the basic needs the assets that ideally are in place and the education intending them given, so that when we're ready for the mysteries of the pluriverse, we can give that the focus it needs. We can do it knowing our base needs are met and supported by greater than ourselves, human and non-human community, and source. We can't build our transcendence from out there. We have to build it from right here, where we stand right now. And in form, that transcendence happens through the body, not despite it. When we talk about fully being, we're talking about embodiment. With Uruz, we have the aurochs Audhumbla, who licked herself free of the Niflheimer ice blocks. She literally worked with the elements around her, tending Fehu, to bring herself into being, then liberated herself to be an individual life force among those elements, interdependence with agency, which we might call embodiment. Uruz is the rune of the being who worked with the elements she had to bring herself into being. With Uruz, we arrive at the verb to embody, to tend our full range of assets as best we can, even if all we have is fire, ice, and poison, so that we can stand in our agency as an embodied being. Uruz, to embody. It means to realize all that you are through the body. Embodiment is bringing our awareness fully into our body, such that our spirituality, our divinity, isn't just believed to be within us. We feel it in our cells and senses. We hold all that we are. That's what Audhumbla did. She literally and figuratively brought herself into being, and we are charged, once in form, to do the same. We are all born, but we are not born initiated. That's on us, and intentionally embodying ourselves is a key requirement of soul-informed initiation of the human variety. It's what grants us full access to our agency. And if we've learned anything, the distribution of Fehu to hold us for that initiation is variable in settler culture. It's imbalanced at best. We don't all come in with the same assets at our disposal, which means that how some folks arrive at Uruz, at embodiment, is already challenged right out of the gate. I'll go so far as to say that in settler culture, it's challenged for us all, though some of us haven't realized that fact. And it's challenged on purpose. It's not a side effect. We're still creating ourselves against realities that were never designed for our success, or we're so privileged and successful within the present systems, we don't understand what everybody else's problem is. We don't understand when they say they can't Fehu. Both of those scenarios don't leave much room for embodiment or interdependence. And this is why embodiment isn't always fun, because embodiment by definition means so inhabited of self that awareness of trans self, which is true enlightenment, emerges. And that means we become aware of those inequities. It stirs big feelings. Initial embodiment can be full of grief and sadness. Why was I not always embodied? Why has this been missing in my life? How different could my life have been had I elders to teach me this? What's my responsibility to support others' embodiment? How do I get them the Fehu they need? How do I hold embodiment under duress? Instagram don't talk about that part of embodiment. I think that's the real rub of Uruz. We talk about this rune with regard to the body and care around health. Yes, it's about body, but specifically about the fusion of awakened consciousness into the body. Uruz is the point that we recognize our soul informedness. It's not passive. We know it. And in order to do that well, we have to work our assets, Fehu. We all have unique weird regarding those assets, though what we do have in our favor can be Orlog. Where Orlog is our personal and ancestral, sorta cultural path that we can somewhat influence, Orlog is how we're in relationship with all of that and more. It's how we engage, what actions we take around it, what verbs we employ with the lot we're handed. I have a good friend who reminds me on occasion that in dynamics we can't change, we can still change how we're in relationship with them. And the change that we can make with Uruz is to embody ourselves as fully and deeply as possible. Not only does it serve self and all relationships around you well, but being firmly, wholly you is the most radical rebellion you can undertake in all of your life. And that is the kind of rebellion that changes bigger systems. What verbs do you associate with Uruz? How does working with those verbs help you engage Uruz? Thank you for listening. If you have questions or insights about working with the rooms as verbs or in season or however you feel called to work with them, or you just want to drop me a line, you can do that at Kelley, Kelley, at soulintentarts.com. Also, check out earlier episodes by downloading them from all various podcast forms. You can learn more about me, Runic Book of Days, and my work by visiting soulintentarts.com or on Instagram at Kelley Soul Arts. You can also find notes on this episode on my website under the menu option Learn Livable Rune Lore. I'm Kelley, and this has been What in the Weird. Thank you for all that you do in the world.